It's been a hard week. Started out on Sunday last week with the triumphant entry, but it still was a certain sadness, a certain fear as they went into Jerusalem and faced the people that opposed them. There was conflict between Jesus and the rabbis, the Pharisees and the scribes. And then the supper, when it should have been the Passover feast, it should have been a great celebration of all that God had done for the people of Israel, for all that God had given them and their freedom. But somehow it slightly changed when Jesus added to these words, added to that the words, "This is my body, which is broken for you. This is my blood, which is shed for you." Then there was the whole Judas thing. They were in the desert helping minister to Jesus, and they also show up at Christmas and Easter. So you're in good company. But first, you've got to prove that you're an angel. Angels didn't even convince Mary. She's a tough lady. That would have got me right there. But angels don't convince her until she turns around and sees the gardener. Her expectations limit her to what she's going to see. She expected the body. She didn't expect the living Christ. So she asked him, "Where did you put him?" Jesus speaks to her and says, "Mary." In that way, there is an intimacy of friendship and endearment, and in that intonation, in the way that he said it, she realized who it was and that it was the Christ that had come back to life. Jesus was with her, and so she tries to grab it. That would be your first inclination, I think. But in this gospel, Jesus says, "No, don't touch me." A little odd. Until we remember from previously in John's Gospel, where Jesus said, "It is better that I go away, because then the Holy Spirit can come, and he can teach you all things and be in all places at all times." In other words, the Christ, even the resurrected Christ, is limited by time and space. But he can be with us in the Holy Spirit everywhere, in every generation. Let me go so that I can come back to everyone. So Mary Magdalene then rushes off to tell the disciples what really happened. And she's the first one to declare that Christ is risen. So the first Easter sermon was preached by Mary. And all she did was say, "Let me tell you what happened to me." Now, we have a lot invested in this story. And so the first question that comes to the minds of a lot of people is this true? Or is it just a fairy tale? There are always skeptics who say, no, this really didn't happen. And we've got a lot invested in that. Because if there was no resurrection, then Jesus was just another traveling evangelist who lived and died, and if he was just another man, he would fade away into history. How do we know that it's true? Well, we'll never prove that beyond any shadow of a doubt. But let me give you some evidence that convinces me. First place, there are lots of witnesses. Not just one or two or three, but dozens of witnesses. And you know as well as I do that if you have several dozen people, unless it's what really happened, you can't keep the story straight. Somebody's going to mess it up. Somebody's going to give away the secret. There were lots of witnesses. The second thing was, if there is a contention about whether Jesus rose from the dead or not, Why not produce the body? If they took it somewhere, they had the whole Roman army to look for it. Surely they could question people. Somebody would break down and tell the truth if they just hid the body. They couldn't produce a body. But even more persuasive to me is that the followers, almost all the followers who were there, who claimed to see the risen Christ, died for their faith. People don't die for a lie. They experienced it. They knew it. They trusted it. They believed it. Enough to die for. But there's one piece of evidence that is even more persuasive. And that is that we have seen the risen Christ. I've seen him in worship services. I've seen him in the faces of people who are so loving and self-giving that they put other people first and exemplify, they model everything that Christ taught. I've seen it in lives that were transformed with people who were so self-absorbed and self-indulgent, and then Christ turns them around into being an entirely different person, and it wasn't possible any other way. Like Mary, we can see the risen Christ. But we need to hang around to where he's going to be. We need to hang around with other disciples, because he tended to come in groups when they gathered together. In fact, I think he said, where 2 or 3 of you are gathered together, there I will be also. He also hung around with the least, the last, and the lost. That might be a good place to meet the risen Christ. We can meet the risen Christ today. And that's how we know, because we can say, I've seen Christ alive. And it makes all the difference in the world. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. I believe in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified and dead and buried. On the third day, in God the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord, who was conceived by the Holy Spirit, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified and dead and buried. On the third day, he rose from the dead. He ascended into heaven, and sits at the right hand of God the Father Almighty. From thence he shall come to judge the quick and the dead. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church, the communion of saints, the forgiveness of sins, the resurrection of life,